All right, so we have a new poll that has come out of New York in the mayor's race, and we have Zoran Mamdani just totally, absolutely dominating the poll. We're going to go ahead and go into it. We're going to delve into the crosstabs that I have here. So we will be talking about that at the end of this video. But I did want to show you here the Fox News article about it, because I think Fox News has even kind of resigned to the fact that Mamdani is going to win this race and possibly win it by a pretty decent amount. Might not get a majority, but will win it nonetheless. So I did want to pull this up. Now, before we get into the poll, let's look at some other news that there is in regards to campaigns and elections. So Sherrod Brown is going to be running for the U.S. Senate again. So we're going to keep an eye on that. As I mentioned in the last video or 2 videos ago, Sherrod Brown lost by 3.5%. So is it a good idea for him to come back in? I think so, though many federal candidates, when they've served in office for a long time and then lose re-election and then come back to run, they usually do worse. I don't know if that will be the case with Sherrod Brown. We're in a whole new situation nowadays compared to in the past, where I think, partisanship is just going back and forth at a crazy rate compared to it being a steady increase or decline. But he doesn't have to reinvent the wheel. He has a campaign staff. He's able to raise money. He has name ID. He is kind of the best person to go with right now, even though I would like to have a different candidate run, because I'm not a fan of Sherrod Brown, honestly, because I think he's more of a moderate to even conservative Democrat on a lot of things, such as healthcare. He does not support universal healthcare, primarily because his father is a doctor. So why would you want to take money out of the family? Anyway, in this situation, I think he's the best candidate. He doesn't have to build that profile. He can hit the ground running. So Sherrod Brown is in this. In Georgia here, we have Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones being endorsed by Donald Trump. Now, I don't know much about the Georgia governor's race. I'll go ahead and link this down below for people who are interested in that. I haven't delved much into this. I think it's going to be, I don't know who the Democrats have running. I don't know who is really running in this race. Is Stacey Abrams going to take another crack at it? I do not know. But yeah, I have this here. Now, the one that I really want to talk about here is the race in Iowa, where Jody Ernst, Democrats always say that Jody Ernst is somebody that they can beat, but they just never do. And she actually does a lot better than expected. But maybe this is a change. So we have this state representative, Josh Turek. So we see here Representative Josh Turek, 2-time Paralympian, launches campaign for U.S. Senate race. Now, he actually is the representative for the most Republican district held by a Democrat. Donald Trump won it twice. And looking at the composition of the district, it does seem very similar to the state of Iowa as a whole. So he kind of prepares himself to run statewide. Now, one thing, and I got the headphones here, one thing that I want to do is I want to look at his video that he released. So this is the video that he released yesterday as he announced that he was running. And we're going to go through this video. We'll take a few minutes. We're going to go through this video, but yeah, let's watch this. So this is his announcement video.
I was born an underdog. 21 surgeries by the age of 12. Spina bifida, caused by my dad's exposure to Agent Orange in Vietnam.
All right, so first of all, that's really important because it hits 2 generations mentioning this. So personally, my father was in the Vietnam War in the Marines and was affected by Agent Orange as well, and is currently on full disability because of his exposure to Agent Orange. So this, and Iowa is a state that has a lot of veterans, a lot. VFW halls are huge there, okay? So in this situation, you have something that connects to older veterans who might have served in Vietnam, and maybe those Gen X people like myself who have family members who were in Vietnam who were exposed to Agent Orange. Okay. This also, because he couldn't use the military veteran type of thing because obviously he was missing his legs. So in this situation, he can play a military background without he himself being in the military. So I think this is this is strategically placed, I think, for that reason.
A kid wearing Goodwill hand-me-downs with the wrong color lunch ticket. I knew nothing would come easy, but I never doubted my right to the American dream.
Now, I don't know if the audio is coming across as well it is for me. I'll link this down below so you can see it. The audio is pristine in this, which shows me, and how this commercial has been going so far, shows me this thing wasn't just produced in some Des Moines, Iowa, somebody in Des Moines, Iowa, just who's a small producer did this. This was really professionally done. And you can really tell by the sound quality how professionally done this was. This might have been paid for by DSCC. We don't know.
Sitting in my wheelchair, 9 years old, watching the Olympics, I dreamed of winning gold for my country too. In 2016, I did just that.
Guess who on the left side? Josh Turek.
Council Bluffs, Iowa native.
And then I did it again.
Back-to-back gold medals.
It wouldn't have been possible without the grit that made me shoot 1,000 shots every day. And I wouldn't have gotten that far without VA health coverage from my dad's service, free summer lunch programs when my parents were struggling, and the local AEA that made sure that I had access to a good education. When I was a kid, there was a senator from Iowa that made sure that the doors were open for kids like me.
All right, so if he's got Tom Harkin on his side, which I assume he would, then I think he's going to be a Democratic nominee. Tom Harkin is... So obviously, he was the author of the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, because his brother was deaf. So helping disabled Americans is an extreme passion of Tom Harkin's. As a matter of fact, if you look at the 1992 Democratic Convention, when Tom Harkin started his speech, remember he was a candidate for president that year. When he started his speech, he did it in sign language, right? So this is a huge passion for him. Tom Harkin's still very popular in Iowa. So this is a good connection here. Putting Tom Harkin in there is important.
Now the senator from Iowa is just closing doors, taking away health care, making it harder for parents to feed their kids. All just to give tax breaks to billionaires. In her explanation,
well, we all are going to die.
That quote's going to kill her. I mean, we might come to the point. Joni Ernst has said irrational things in the past, but her doing this and then doing her video of her saying, "I'm sorry for saying we're all going to die," and she did from a cemetery, the smugness of it, that actually might come back to bite her in the ass. I don't know. We'll see. Got a year. We got a year and a half to see if that does bite her in the ass. But that was just so stupid.
Well, I'm tired of...
Because it goes more to just like, you're all going to die. It's a stupid remark. It goes to, I don't give a shit about your health care. And that's how they should be spinning this, and I think they are in this video.
Iowans being taken for granted. I wasn't supposed to be able to win a state house seat that Trump won twice. But I campaigned just like I played basketball, outworking everyone, pushing the hills, crawling the stairs, all just to have a conversation with everyday...
And this is huge. That scene there is huge. Because one thing that Republicans like to say without any proof, which is basically the Republican Party in general, they always like say Democrats are lazy, though more whites are actually on, assistance than because they're not working than people who are Democrats. This is totally blowing the lazy Democrat type of moniker that the Republicans have created for the Democrats. So it shows a hardworking guy, even when faced with challenges, is working and striving to be his best. That blows the Republican laziness thing totally out of the water.
Iowans. Did not matter the party. We won that first race by just 6 votes. We won the next one by 5 points in the reddest seat in Iowa held by a Democrat. Iowans deserve a senator who works for them again. So I'm running for U.S. Senate. A whole lot of folks are going to look at a guy like me and say, man, that is a real long shot.
And I'll tell you, I'll tell you one thing. I'll tell you another thing too. I don't think it's a mistake that he's putting a beer there. Okay, that another, Democrats are just latte sipping Starbucks people. That's placed there for a reason.
Like me and say, man, that is a real long shot. Well, in Iowa, we love an underdog. So if you are ready to push for change, join me.
Okay, so I wanted to show that video because obviously it's very professionally produced. This is going to be a race that a year from now, we're going to be probably talking about this race every single day. This is one that I think the Democrats could pick up. If they win Sherrod Brown and Josh Turek wins, because, yeah, Iowa is a more Republican state now, but it can flip back. Okay. And everyone says, oh, it's a Republican state. But you know what? If we didn't have elections that changed, then every single election since 1800 would have been the same. Okay. Voters change, issues change, ideological changes happen, partisanship changes, and it can change from election to election. You got to realize in 2012, Georgia was not even nearly a target state for the Democrats. Now Democrats have both senators, and Joe Biden won it in 2020. So a lot can change in just a few years' time. So watching this, I feel that this is going to be one of those very close races we watch. I'd love to see a poll now that he's made this announcement, shows this video, very professionally done. Maybe we'll get a poll out of Iowa showing what the race is starting to look like. Also, in some congressional races here, let's see. We have a former VA nurse is the second Democrat to enter Wisconsin's first congressional district. So again, we're really hitting on the VA, and I think there have been more than one VA nurse and VA doctors and stuff like that that have announced that they're running. And that first congressional district is actually quite competitive. So it could be one that the Democrats could knock off. So I'll go ahead and put the article down in the description below. We also have another candidate, or a candidate, a state senator, John Braun, running in a Washington congressional seat. Now, this seat is held by Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez, who is more of a moderate. It's more of a conservative district, and it was a district that most people thought Democrats are going to lose that one. I even had it as a L for the Democrats, but Gluesenkamp-Perez actually won the seat. So she's shown that she can win it on her own, that she can buck the national trends. So I think she'll still do well in this election. Now let's go over to the New York poll. So I'll link all of what I just showed you down below. I might, so you can get an idea of what that is and make your own judgment. Let's go ahead and delve into the Mamdani poll. So the Mamdani poll here, the New York mayor's race poll, we have Mamdani, we have Eric Adams, Cuomo. Then how do you pronounce this? Slwill? I'm just going to call him Guardian Angels guy. Okay. Guardian Angels guy. Sorry if people get offended because I don't really know how to pronounce that name, because that's just kind of a weird consonant cluster, weird with a W in there. Yeah. Sorry, deal with it. Anyway, as we can see, Mamdani is winning 44% to Cuomo's 25%. So he is in the lead. Now, if we look at Democrats, a majority of Democrats are supporting Mamdani, which is, you'd like that number to be higher, but you do have the establishment Democrat, 32%, that will not vote for anyone that isn't both a social justice warrior and extremely conservative when it comes to economic issues, right? So this is not a surprise. Republicans aren't a big number when it comes to New York City, but what I do find interesting, and we'll talk about why this might matter, we do see Mamdani winning 30% of the independent and other votes, with Eric Adams second and Cuomo third. Again, this is more of a Democratic city, so the independents might not matter as much. Now, let's get to our first mythbuster, or I wouldn't even say mythbuster, but just kind of show how things can be done differently. Let's look at gender. This, I think, is an interesting one. Mamdani has 46% of male voters, but only 40% of female voters. That is an exact opposite of what you would expect. So you have Mamdani actually performing well with male voters. And after the Democrats spent all that money on how to win over male voters, or whatever the hell that bullshit report that they did, he's showing you the roadmap right here, people. He's showing you the roadmap. And if you're wondering if this is like a mistake in this poll, I don't think so. Because if we look at the gubernatorial hypothetical between Kathy Hochul and Elise Stefanik, you can see that we have the gender distribution about what you expect. Even though Hochul is winning within the margin of error with male voters, she's dominating with female voters. So this is the distribution we would expect. So if their overall poll of the state had the correct distribution, then I believe that this distribution shows that something's happening here where Mamdani is almost winning a majority of male voters in a four-way race. Okay? Look at his messaging. Look at what he's doing. It's obviously connecting with male voters. Now, let's look at ideology. Now, I do want to make one point clear about ideology. Both party and ideology in any poll is self-identified, but whereas party is basically a label, it's like Coke or Pepsi, ideology is more than that. It is a set of beliefs and values, and you're not usually going to be one side or the other. And a lot of people might actually misidentify what their values are with an ideology. So I have met people in the past who say, I'm a conservative, and then they just say, oh, well, I'm pro-choice. I want more taxes. I want to, and I'm like, why are you identifying as a conservative? So I do want to bring that here and show you that, because these are self-identifications. It doesn't necessarily mean that the people are liberal, conservative, or moderate. Okay. So of those who self-identify as moderate, 70% are going for Mamdani, which is not a surprise, with 15% for Cuomo. Now, when it comes to the moderates, again, what is a moderate? Is a moderate somebody who doesn't have any beliefs on anything, or are they extreme moderates where they're very far right on some things, very far left on the others? You can see that Cuomo is winning 37%. The good thing if you're Mamdani is that usually moderates and those, a lot of times they don't vote in elections. Okay. They just stay out of it, especially in elections that are kind of more dirty, a lot more mud being slung. But you do see that Cuomo is up by 10% with Mamdani only at 27%. Now, this is another interesting number, and we're going to compare it with a few other ones. So here you can see 23% of conservatives in this poll say they are for Mamdani, 18% for Cuomo. Of course, Guardian Angels dude, going to go ahead and be at 40%. Now, 23%, nearly 1 in 4 voters in a four-way race are voting for the by far most progressive candidate that there is. Why can that be the case? Well, let's look at a few things. First, we see that 23% of conservatives are voting for Mamdani, and this is why I mentioned ideology versus party and labels. 7% of Republicans. So what does that mean? That means a large chunk of people who identify as conservatives do not identify with the Republican Party. So they're not going to connect that gap that you have there, which is a pretty significant gap. They're not going to go with Mr. Guardian Angels here. They're not going to go with the MAGA movement. They probably don't like Eric Adams because he's corrupt as hell. And Mario Cuomo being the establishment Democratic candidate, well, they're conservatives. They don't like the Democratic Party. So if they're looking, if this conservative number here are traditional conservatives that don't like the other candidates for certain reasons, and they want a bull in a china shop that's just going to come in there and do stuff, well, Mamdani becomes that candidate. So this number, if we get any exit polls on election day, this number is going to be very interesting to see. And if we get any polls after this poll in the near future, we'll see if that holds. Union households, Mamdani is winning in that. There's nothing really big there. But again, Democrats say we're losing union households. We're losing union households. Well, here's a candidate right here that's winning them, right? Maybe listen to what he says. Maybe go ahead and talk about his messaging instead of casting him aside. Ethnicity, we can see that Mamdani is winning a plurality of white voters with Cuomo second. With black voters, Cuomo is winning by 8%. Now, to me, I guess the Eric Adams number kind of shocks me at 16%, but this overall number doesn't surprise me because a lot of black voters, especially in many of these cities and in the South, are connected to establishment Democratic candidates and establishment Democratic philosophy. This is the reason why somebody like James Clyburn can somehow single-handedly pick who the Democratic nominee for president is going to be in 2020. It seemed like his vote mattered more than anybody else's. So a lot of black voters are part of that establishment. But, and it's important to notice, not a majority. So 32% is still going for Mamdani. So that 40%, I think, are a lot of black voters who have been involved with the political process a long time, very much involved with their communities and involved with the churches, who have voted the same way and for the same people and for the same representatives throughout all the years. So there is that dynamic there. But again, remember, that is only 40%. 60% are saying, no, we are not in that direction. Now, here's another thing. Latino votes. What do we hear from the Democrats? We're losing Latino votes. We're losing Latino votes. We're losing Latino votes. Here's a guy that's winning 58% of them. AOC obviously wins a ton of them. So as the Democratic Party, now granted, this is a microcosm. This is New York. It's not the country. But he must be saying something right to have his largest group by far being Latino voters, with only 18%, 40% less going to Cuomo. And this goes back to the Democratic Party. Well, we got to win these voters back. Well, look at the people who are winning the union voters back, winning the Latino voters back, right? If that's going to be your argument, here you go. Now let's go to age. Age, there's not much to talk about. Mamdani has, as voters get older, they go against him. Cuomo, as voters get older, they go for Cuomo. So, and as a matter of fact, basically anyone 18 to 54, Mamdani is winning. With 55 and older, he's only down by 6%. So the age distribution doesn't seem to be much. Now, there are two other crosstabs we're going to look at. So religion, I thought, was a very interesting one. Not as much the Protestant numbers. There's a smaller percentage in New York, or other, which would probably be Muslim voters, which of course Mamdani would win. But there are also a lot of people who identify as atheists and other things that would be put into that as well. And so on, LDS members, so on. But let's start with the Catholic number, which is huge in New York City. 37%, a plurality of Catholics, are voting for Mamdani, even though two candidates, Guardian Angel Guy and Andrew Cuomo, are Catholics themselves. Okay, so they together only equate to 50%. So 50% of Catholic voters are saying we don't want one of those two, regardless of the fact that they're Catholic. And Mamdani has a plurality of Catholic voters. So again, Democratic Party, you keep on saying we need to win back Catholic voters. We got to win back Catholic voters. Well, here's a guy that's winning a plurality of Catholic voters, and yet you're still not listening to him. Now let's go over to Jewish voters. Of course, if we want to talk about what the establishment Democrats have done, what people like Bill Maher have done, who have totally lied about his campaign, said Mamdani supports free grocery stores. He's never said that once. He's never said that once. He supports community-run grocery stores and doing a test in one store in all 5 boroughs to see if it works. And if it does work, then they'll do it. But if it doesn't, he'll quit. He's not talked about free grocery stores at all. People like Bill Maher talking about the Gaza issue, starting off telling younger people they need to have a nuanced view on Gaza, and then end the paragraph with saying either you're with Israel or with the terrorists, which is about the least nuanced view that you can have. Mamdani is still winning 20% of Jewish voters, which tells you a few things. And Cuomo is winning 44%. This 20% tells you a few things, which I think is pretty impressive, considering that almost everyone has made the campaign against Mamdani on free grocery stores, which is a lie, and Gaza. Oh, and I think defund the police, right? Those are the 3 things that they've done. But they've made Gaza a huge part of his. And of course, it's because I think they focus more on that instead of the other things because, well, he's a Muslim, right? 20% of Jewish voters, I think, is a pretty decent number in this. But it does show a few things. One, Jewish voters have other issues. And I think there is a myopic way that the Democratic Party looks at Jewish voters, as that they do everything through the lens of what's happening in Israel. Jewish voters have to pay bills. Jewish voters have problems with student loans. Jewish voters have problems with healthcare. They're trying to buy a car. They're trying to get a mortgage for a house. They got other problems. And yet the Democratic Party is just like, oh, it's Israel. Just like Hispanic voters, up, we're going to talk about immigration with them. That's all they care about. Up, black voters, we're going to talk about police brutality because that's all black voters care about. The Democrats need to get out of this rut of treating voters in silos in which they only are going to torpedo one issue at them. And that can offend a lot of them, right? So that is an interesting number. As far as the other numbers, they're no difference. And then the final one, income, because another argument that the Democrats make is that, oh, well, if we pick someone like Mamdani, all the funding's going to go away. We're going to lose our fundraiser. We're going to lose all this money that comes into the party. Okay. But yet at the same time, we want to build small donor bases like Bernie does. We're impressed with what Bernie does. How do we do that? Well, let's look at the income. Of those making $100,000 or less, the ones who could probably afford to send a $50, $100, $250, $500 check to a campaign, Mamdani is winning a majority of them. Okay, so if you're trying to build a small donor base, wouldn't you want to be having a candidate that's going to be able to win amongst voters who make more money? Okay, I mean that's just pretty obvious. So you're saying that he can't make the money for you, but yet he's doing the best with people who make more money. I don't get it. I don't get the logic behind that. But as income goes up, so does the support for Mamdani. As the income goes down, Cuomo's also goes down. The rest of the numbers are stagnant. So yeah, I did want to mention this poll because yes, it's an interesting poll when it comes to the New York mayor's race, but it just blows all of these preconceived notions that establishment Democrats have been telling people for years and years and years. Oh, you can't vote for this person because they're not going to do this, or they aren't going to win these people. They're not going to win that people. They're unelectable and stuff. This poll just blows out of the water. Now, granted, it is a microcosm of New York City, but it's there. Until there's evidence that shows that's not the case, the evidence shows that is the case. All right, so thank you all very much. Make sure to subscribe and like, and I'll see you in the next video.